Hello, and welcome back to the Face Forward podcast. So, every now and then, an idea gets stuck in my head anyway, and one of those questions that just refuses to leave. And I have had one of those this week. Oddly enough, it didn't start with politics, it started with stories. And every great story ever told has an enemy, a protagonist and an antagonist. So, Luke Skywalker had Darth Vader. Harry Potter had Voldemort. Sherlock Holmes had Moriarty. So every memorable story has something standing in the way. Without conflict, there really isn't a story. Which probably explains why politics has become so obsessed with creating enemies. Every election comes with another battle, another villain, another person to defeat. And if you listen to enough campaign ads these days, you'd think the biggest problem facing the country is always the other candidate. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered if politics has made one giant mistake. What if it's been fighting the wrong enemy all along? Vaughan, what do you think about this? Have I completely overthought this?
No, I think you've pointed out one of the biggest mistakes in modern campaigning. And it's a mistake because people don't wake up in the morning thinking about politicians. Mm-hmm. They wake up wondering, can I afford my mortgage? Will my kids have a better life? When can I retire? Is my town still going to be a place I recognize 10 years from now? That's where people live. So if all you're doing is talking about another politician and how dreadful they are, you're talking about something most people spend almost no time thinking about.
Okay, hold on a second. Every consultant I've ever met said one of the first jobs in a campaign is defining your opponent. Are they wrong?
They're not wrong, but it's an incomplete thought. We've actually confused an opponent with an enemy, and they're not the same thing.
Right.
The opponent is simply a person who's standing across from you on a debate stage. Your enemy is whatever stands between people and the future they want. Mm-hmm. That's a much bigger idea.
I see. So you're saying the story isn't candidate versus candidate, it's people versus problem.
Exactly. And in fact, whenever we think about a campaign, I like to use something I call the villain test.
Ooh, I like it. What is the villain test, Vaughan?
It's very simple. If your candidate wins tomorrow, question, what problem disappears? If your answer is the other politician, you probably don't have much of a movement. But if your answer is housing becomes affordable, or government becomes more trustworthy, or young families finally feel they can get ahead, opportunity returns or communities become safer, now you've found something people generally care about.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of looking at it, because now the election almost becomes secondary.
Exactly. The election isn't the whole story at all. It's chapter one. The real story is solving the problem.
But here's what somebody listening might say to you. Politics isn't a Disney movie, Vaughan. It's a contact sport. Sometimes you got to hit back.
Well, it's not about necessarily being sugary and nicer, but it is about being smarter.
Right.
And criticism has its place. But criticism should point to something bigger, otherwise it's just negative theatre.
Give me an example of what you mean.
Well, one of the people we like to talk about is Ronald Reagan, and people remember Morning in America.
Oh, yes.
Think about that phrase. It isn't about the Carter administration or Walter Mondale. It's about restoring optimism. And think about Barack Obama. His campaign wasn't fundamentally about John McCain. You didn't see a lot of ads, if any, actually, criticizing John McCain. It was about hope and changing the way politics worked. Or Donald Trump, his story has remained remarkably consistent. His opponents have changed, but his larger enemy hasn't. His supporters believe he is fighting what he calls the establishment. That's why the story survives from election to election.
So campaigns spend millions trying to define the opponent, when maybe they should spend more time defining the obstacle.
Exactly, and this is why they don't do it, right? People are easier to explain than problems.
Right.
It takes 3 seconds to say he's incompetent or something worse. It takes 3 minutes to explain why housing is unaffordable, or why people have lost trust, or why young families feel stuck. Leadership and creativity in this world is harder.
Right.
Because leadership has to find a way to explain the problem before it can offer the solution. Much easier just to poke your finger in the other guy's eye.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, that reminds me of some of the work we've been pitching recently. Instead of saying, my opponent supports irresponsible development, you simply say, X state grew fast. Now, it needs to grow well. Immediately, the conversation changes.
Yeah, and the enemy isn't another politician. It's unmanaged growth.
Right.
The candidate becomes the face of solving it. That's a completely different emotional experience for voters.
But yeah, Vaughan, I think people are hungry for that. Not just someone who's angry, someone who has direction, someone who can guide us.
Well, exactly. And people don't need help recognizing problems
No,
because
they
they
don't.
live with them. But
That's
they're
right.
looking for someone who can make sense of those problems and give them confidence that they're solvable. That's what leadership is.
And you know what I keep coming back to? And maybe that's why so much political advertising leaves us exhausted. It's always asking us to hate someone. And very little of it asks to build something.
Yes,
It's too easy.
That's because, and also because anger gets attention. At least it gets attention
Sure.
in some channels, but hope gets commitment. And the leaders we remember, the ones who become symbols, the ones who keep winning, almost always invite us to build. They don't simply invite us to blame.
Right. So maybe before every campaign asks, who are we running against? They should ask, what future are we running towards?
I'd actually ask an even earlier question to that, but though I think that's brilliantly put. What is the real obstacle?
Right.
Because once people understand what's truly standing between them and the future they want, they'll usually figure out for themselves who's protecting it and who's trying to change it. If they're living in movie A and want to move to movie B, live in movie B, they're going to figure that out. And that's why great leaders aren't remembered for the enemies they created. They're remembered for the obstacles they removed and the problems they solved and the opportunities they unlocked and the future they helped people believe was possible. That's the difference between winning an election and becoming the face of change and making a difference when you're actually in office.
Yeah, very well said. Well, Vaughan, I think that's a wonderful place to leave it. And if today's conversation challenged the way you think about politics, leadership, or branding, we'd love to continue the conversation. You can visit us at faceforwardglobal.com to explore more episodes of the Face Forward podcast and discover how we can help leaders, campaigns, organizations, and businesses become the face of meaningful change. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves great conversations about leadership and storytelling. So, until next time, I'm Dave O'Brien, and this is
Vaughan Emsley.
And we want to keep changing things for you. See you next time.